Good morning, Mount Olive. I plan on spending some time looking at this new series that my mother had. It's the complete first season of the Andy Griffith Show. You know, there's a character in there called Otis Campbell that I'm intrigued by because you see, Otis Campbell is the town drunk, and Otis Campbell will be found in many episodes of leaving after he sobers up the prison, the jailhouse. But then later in the episode, you'll probably find Otis coming back in of the evening. And I guess he's been doing what he shouldn't have been doing. And he comes in and lets himself back in his prison. And so it's kind of comical that you see Otis Campbell, who had got out of prison or out of jail, so to speak, and now he's letting himself back into the jail that he was freed from. And so I guess the point of that is that, there's many Christians in churches today who are living a type of Otis Campbell Christianity. They've been delivered and set free by Christ, but they allow themselves to slip right back in to the prison or the jail of the law and expectations. And so let's just kind of look today at our devotion scripture. And so is the key verse for our sermon, or God's sermon yesterday. It was a great sermon that God sent all of us. The key verse is to stand fast in a liberty wherewith Christ has made us free. So you've been set free, and then it follows up and says, abused freedom can be freedom lost, and be not entangled again. You can lose the freedom that Christ has gave you with the yoke of bondage. And we talked about that there were two yokes of bondages. There are two yokes of bondage that you could face in your life. One is sin, and the other is the law. And so in verse 4, he deals with the law. Look what he says. Christ has become of no effect unto you. Whoever of you think you're justified by the law, you are now fallen from grace. And so he says a yoke of bondage is that after we've been saved, we can fall back into this legalistic religion, this religion by the law, this justification being made right by God by the law. This is very important because Paul wrote this book of Galatians. You got to know the context. Because there were some Judaizers, which means some Jews/Christians. They were these false teachers who had come to the point of saying, yes, we need to accept Christ and his work on the cross. But after that, you still need to keep the law. And most specifically, they were saying you need to get circumcised. You need to follow the rituals and ceremonies of the law to stay saved. And so they began to teach this in the Galatians church. So Paul writes this whole book of Galatians to fight against that. And in verse 4, he tells them, he says, some of you are going back to the law. You're slipping back to a religion by the law. And he says, look, he says it. Then the cross of Christ is of no effect, and you are fallen from grace. Where do we go with this devotion? We must be reminded, because that heresy, that tendency is still alive with Christians in churches today. This, after we're saved by Christ, we fall into this mode of going back to trying to perform for God, trying to earn God's acceptance, trying to do good works for God's favor. We try to live up to expectations of the Christian life. And so what we do is we put ourselves in a situation of always in fear, serving God by fear, serving God by the fear of judgment, the fear of being unworthy, serving God by obligation, serving God by having a performance. And when that happens, there's only two results to that. One is to be full of pride because you feel like you've done good for God. And the other is to be in despair because you feel like that maybe you've let God down, or maybe the results of your work or your ministry was not what you expected. That's signs that you've slipped back into the Otis Campbell Christianity. I want to tell you this morning, don't be caught up by the law. Yes, there is a way to live, and we do that because we love God. And maybe somebody will share that later this week. But I want to encourage you, don't let yourself be put back into the expectation that you've got to live by the law, that you've got to earn God's favor, that you're not good enough, that you're not worthy. Because the cross of Christ says you are worthy. The cross of Christ says he does love you. You are forgiven. You are accepted. You are one of his. Mount Olive, I hope you have a wonderful day today. And remember, we're living and saved by grace, not by the law. Have a good day.